The month since the Reed-Thorne case broke had been a special kind of hell. My name was in the papers, my face on the news. I was the private eye who'd cracked the impossible case, the man who'd brought down a corrupt empire. I should have been celebrating. Instead, I was a prisoner in my own mind. The memory restoration hadn't just given me back the last 24 hours. It had given me back everything, in high definition, surround sound clarity. I couldn't forget. Not the smell of bleach and blood in the Whispering Pines motel. Not the sound of the crystal paperweight hitting bone. Not the cold, calculating look in Evelyn Reed's eyes as the specialist pressed the headset to my skull. My mind was a movie theater playing a horror film on a loop, and I couldn't leave my seat. I was in my office, trying to drink a cup of coffee that tasted like ash, when the smell hit me. Lemon-scented cleaner. The cleaning lady in the hallway was mopping the floors. The scent was a key, turning a lock in my brain, and suddenly I wasn't in my office anymore. I was back in the motel bathroom, the air thick with the chemical stink of a cleaned-up crime scene. I could feel the cold tile under my shoes, see the numbered evidence marker on the floor. My heart hammered against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of panic. "Mr. Corrigan?" The voice cut through the flashback like a shard of glass. I blinked, and I was back in my office. A man was standing in my doorway. He was the opposite of his brother, Marcus. Where Marcus had been a refrigerator of muscle and arrogance, this man was a coat rack of nerves and intellect. He was thin, with the same sharp features, but his eyes were wide with a perpetual anxious energy. This had to be Dr. Thorne. "I'm sorry," he said, wringing his hands. "I didn't mean to startle you." "You didn't," I lied, my voice rough. I gestured to the chair. "What do you want, Dr. Thorne? If you're here to talk about your brother, I've got nothing to say." "I'm not," he said, sitting down on the very edge of the chair as if he were afraid it might break. "I'm here because of what they did to you. Mnemosyne. What they did to my brother, what he did, it was unforgivable. But the technology he used, the technology I helped create, it's a cancer." I leaned back, my guard up. "I'm not interested in a science lesson." "You should be," he said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "They're still using it, and they're getting better. There was a witness, an accountant at Ethelred Corp. He was ready to testify that Marcus was moving money, covering up something huge. He was under police protection." "So?" I asked. "What's the problem?" "The problem is that this morning the witness is gone," Eris said, his eyes wide with terror. "Not just gone, erased. The police went to his safe house, and the apartment was empty. Not just empty, sterile. No clothes, no photos, no toothbrush. They checked his digital records, bank accounts, social security, email, all gone. It's like he never existed." I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. It was the same thing Evelyn had wanted to do to Arthur, a clean cut. "That's not possible," I said, but I knew it was. "It's what they do," Eris said. "They call it unpersoning. They don't just kill you. They erase you from the fabric of reality. They're cleaning house, Jack, tying up the last loose ends from my brother's mess." "Why come to me?" "Because you're the only one who knows what it feels like," he said. "You're the only one who survived it. You know what they're capable of." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a small, black object, no bigger than a hearing aid. "And because I can help you." "What is that?" "It's a countermeasure," he said. "A neural dampener. It can help you manage the side effects, the flashbacks, the memories. It can help you archive the trauma so you can function. You can turn the volume down." I stared at the device. A life without the constant screaming loop of violence in my head. It sounded like heaven. It sounded like a trap. "Why?" I asked. "Why help me?" "Because I need you," he said, his voice pleading. "I need someone to find out where they took the witness. I need someone to get proof of what mnemosyne is. And I need someone who can't be broken by them. Someone whose mind is already a fortress. Please, Jack, let me help you, and you can help me stop them." I was tired, so bone-achingly tired of the noise in my head. I looked at the small black device in his hand. A chance at peace, a chance to forget just for a little while. I reached out and took it. "What do I have to do?" "Just put it in your ear," he said. "It will calibrate to your neural frequency. It will give you the peace you've been looking for." I hesitated for a moment, then put the device in my ear. There was a faint hum, a low, pleasant vibration. And then, for the first time in a month, the screaming in my head stopped. The memories were still there, but they were distant, muted, like a radio playing in another room. It was quiet. It was glorious. I looked at Reed-Thorne and felt a wave of gratitude. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sliver of hope. I had no idea it was the most dangerous feeling of all. The silence in my head was a revelation. It wasn't just the absence of noise, it was the presence of peace. For the first time in a month, I could think. I could focus. I could plan. The device in my ear was a miracle. The witness's name was Leo Carter, Eris said, his voice still hushed, as if Mnemosyne had ears in the walls. The police have nothing. His safe house is a ghost. I need you to find out where they took him. I need you to find the server farm, the ghost core, where they store the memories they erase. Fine, I said, standing up. The sudden movement didn't trigger a flashback. I didn't flinch. I felt stable. Stay here. Don't talk to anyone. I left Reed-Thorne in my office, a bundle of nervous energy, and went to see a man about a ghost. Detective Miller was an old-school cop, a bulldog of a man who trusted his gut more than forensic reports. He owed me one for a case I'd helped him with years ago, a favor he'd never been able to repay. I found him at a diner, nursing a cup of black coffee and a scowl that looked permanent. The lines on his face seemed deeper than the last time I'd seen him. "Corrigan," he grunted as I slid into the booth across from him. "You look like hell." "I feel better than I look," I said, which was the truth. "I'm here about Leo Carter." Miller's scowl deepened. "The ghost. Don't get me started. We've got nothing. His wife, his kids, they're confused. They remember a husband and a father, but the details are fuzzy, like a dream they're forgetting. It's the damnedest thing I've ever seen." "Mind if I take a look at the scene?" I asked. He slid a key across the table. "Be my guest. It's a clean room. Too clean. There's nothing there." He was right. The apartment was sterile. Not just clean, but surgically empty. The walls were bare. The closets were vacant. The air smelled of fresh paint and ammonia. It was a space waiting for a life that had already been lived. I walked through the rooms, my footsteps echoing on the bare floors. The device in my ear kept the memories at bay, allowing me to work with a clear head. I stood in the living room, staring at a large, empty space on the wall. It was where a family photo would have hung, a big, happy portrait. I could almost see it in my mind's eye. A man, a woman, 2 kids, a golden retriever, a perfect suburban life. And then, it wasn't in my mind's eye anymore. It was on the wall. I blinked. The photo was there, framed in rustic wood, hanging exactly where it should have been. I could see the faces, the smiles. The little girl on the swing had a gap-toothed grin. The golden retriever was panting, its tongue lolling out. It was as real as the coffee cup in Miller's hand. I took a step closer, my heart starting to pound. I reached out to touch it, and then it was gone. The wall was just a wall, bare, white, and empty. The photo, the frame, the smiling faces, they had vanished. I was standing in the middle of an empty room, my hand outstretched, touching nothing but air. I stumbled back, my breath catching in my throat. What was that? A flashback? A hallucination? The device in my ear hummed softly, a pleasant, reassuring sound. But for the first time, it didn't feel reassuring. It felt like a lie. The silence in my head was no longer peaceful. It was a vacuum, and something was whispering in the void. I looked around the empty apartment, and for the first time, I felt a fear that had nothing to do with Mnemosyne or missing witnesses. I was afraid of my own mind. I was afraid that the thing that was supposed to be saving me was actually destroying me. I backed out of the apartment, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. I leaned against the hallway wall, trying to catch my breath. It was a hallucination. It had to be. Stress, lack of sleep, my brain, still healing from the violation, was playing tricks on me. The device in my ear hummed, a steady, calming rhythm. It was supposed to be helping. It was helping. I called Miller. "There's nothing here," I said, my voice sounding more steady than I felt. "You were right. It's a dead end." "Told you," he grunted. "Let it go, Corrigan. Some ghosts are better left buried." I hung up and went back to my office. The city felt unreal, like a movie set I was walking through. Every face in the crowd seemed to turn and look at me. Every siren sounded like it was coming for me. The silence in my head was no longer a comfort. It was an empty stage where anything could happen. When I got back to my office, Reed-Thorne was gone. The chair where he'd been sitting was pushed neatly under the desk. There was no sign he'd ever been there. No briefcase, no coffee cup, nothing. A cold dread, sharp and acidic, rose in my throat. I pulled out my phone and checked my call log. No incoming calls from an unknown number. No outgoing calls. It was as if my conversation with Dr. Thorne had never happened. But the device was still in my ear, a small black piece of plastic that was either my salvation or my damnation. I sat down at my desk, my mind racing. I was losing it. I was truly, finally losing it. I looked down at my notepad, the one I used to jot down names and numbers, and I saw it. A note written in my own handwriting. The Serenity Clinic, 3 p.m. Don't be late. I stared at the words. They were mine. The slant of the T, the loop of the Y. It was unmistakably my handwriting. But I had no memory of writing it. My blood ran cold. This wasn't a hallucination. This was something else, something worse. I looked at the clock on my wall. It was 2:47 p.m. I was out of time. I didn't have a choice. I had to know. I grabbed my keys and my coat and headed for the door. The address for the Serenity Clinic was scrawled below the note. It was in the mountains, an hour's drive from the city. The drive was a blur of green trees and gray asphalt. The device in my ear kept me calm, kept the flashbacks at bay, but it couldn't stop the growing sense of dread. I felt like I was driving to my own execution, following a map I'd drawn for myself but couldn't remember creating. The Serenity Clinic wasn't a hospital or a lab. It was a masterpiece of modern architecture, all glass and steel and natural wood, nestled into the side of a mountain like a luxury spa. A tasteful sign in elegant script read, "The Serenity Wellness Retreat." It looked peaceful, tranquil. It looked like a lie. As I stepped out of my car, a powerful wave of déjà vu washed over me. I had been here before. I knew the crunch of the gravel under my shoes, the scent of pine and ozone in the air, the way the afternoon sun glinted off the glass facade. I had walked this path before, but the memory was a ghost, a flicker of something that wasn't there. I walked through the automatic doors into a lobby that was the picture of calm. Soothing music played softly. A woman with a serene smile sat behind a curved wooden desk. "Mr. Corrigan," she said, her voice as smooth as silk. "We've been expecting you." My blood turned to ice. "How did you know my name?" "Dr. Thorne told us you were coming," she said, her smile never wavering. "He's in a session right now, but he asked me to give you this." She handed me a white visitor's lanyard. I took it, my fingers numb. My eyes fell on the small silver logo clipped to the bottom of the lanyard. It was an Ouroboros, a snake eating its own tail, the symbol from Nemesine Solutions. I looked from the logo to the woman's serene, smiling face. The trap hadn't just been sprung. I had walked into it willingly, guided by a ghost in a machine and a note I'd written to myself. I wasn't here to find a missing witness. I was the witness they had been looking for all along. The serene smile on the woman's face didn't waver. It was a perfect, practiced smile, the kind you'd find on a mannequin in a department store window. It was the most terrifying thing I had ever seen. "If you'll follow me, Mr. Corrigan," she said, standing up from her desk. She moved with a fluid, unnatural grace. "Dr. Thorne is just finishing up. He'll be with you shortly." I had two choices, run or play along. Running was pointless. I was in their house, surrounded by their technology. My only move was to see how deep the rabbit hole went. I followed her down a long, white hallway. The floors were a polished white marble that reflected the soft, indirect lighting. There were no pictures on the walls, no other people, no sounds of life. It was a tomb built for the living. She stopped at a door and placed her hand on a biometric scanner. The door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a small Spartan room. It contained only a single, comfortable-looking chair and a large black screen on the wall. "Please wait in here," she said, gesturing for me to enter. "Dr. Thorne will be with you momentarily." I stepped inside and the door slid shut behind me. The room was soundproof. The air was cool and smelled of sterile, filtered air. I was in a box, a clean, white, high-tech box. And then a voice spoke in my ear. It wasn't a hallucination. It was clear, crisp, and coming directly from the device Aris had given me. "Hello, Jack. It's good to see you again." I froze. It was the specialist, the man from the observatory, the man who had erased my mind. "Don't be alarmed," the voice continued, calm and conversational. "The device you're wearing is a remarkable piece of technology. It allows for two-way communication. It also allows us to guide your perceptions, to help you see things more clearly." The black screen on the wall flickered to life. It showed a live feed of another room, a room that looked exactly like the one I was in. And in the chair sat Dr. Reed-Thorne. His eyes were closed, and he was wearing a much larger, more complex version of the headset from the observatory. Wires ran from the headset to a console next to the chair, where a technician in a white coat was monitoring a series of brainwave scans. As you can see, Dr. Thorne is in a session. The specialist's voice said in my ear. He's been uncooperative. He believes our technology is a weapon. He fails to see that it is a tool for order, for peace. We're simply helping him to reevaluate his perspective. On the screen, Eris's body tensed, his face contorted in a silent scream. The technician calmly adjusted a dial on the console. "You and I, Jack, we have a unique connection," the specialist said. "I was the first to map your neural pathways. I know your mind better than you do. I know your fears, your regrets, your desires." The image on the screen changed. It was no longer Reed-Thorne. It was the Whispering Pines motel room. I was watching myself kick in the bathroom door. I watched myself find Arthur Reed's body. I watched myself pick up the bloody paperweight. "These memories are traumatic," the specialist said, his voice a soothing poison. "They cause you pain. They make you weak. But we can fix that. We can remove them. We can give you the peace you've been craving. No more flashbacks, no more pain, just quiet." The image on the screen shifted again. It was a memory I didn't recognize, a memory that wasn't mine. I was standing on a rooftop, the city spread out below me. In my hand was a gun, and in front of me, on his knees, was Marcus Thorne, begging for his life. "Or," the specialist continued, his voice dropping to a whisper, "we can add new ones, better ones, memories of victory, of justice, memories where you are the hero. You can be anyone you want to be, Jack. We can give you a better past and a better future." I stared at the screen, at the man who looked like me holding a gun to Marcus Thorne's head. It felt real. It felt right. The anger, the satisfaction. It was a powerful, intoxicating drug. "All you have to do," the specialist said, "is let us help you." The door to my room slid open. The woman with the serene smile was standing there, holding a glass of water. On the tray next to the water was a small white pill. "Dr. Thorne asked me to give you this," she said, her voice as smooth as silk. "It will help you relax." I looked from the pill to the screen, where the memory of me holding the gun began to loop. I looked at the device in my ear, the source of the voice that was offering me a lie. I was trapped, not in a room, but in my own mind, and they were holding the keys. I looked at the pill. I looked at the woman's serene, empty smile. I looked at the screen, where the false memory of me as a cold-blooded executioner played on a loop. It was a good story, a satisfying story, a lie. And in the quiet, sterile room, with the voice of my tormentor whispering in my ear, something inside me finally snapped. It wasn't a breakdown, it was a breakthrough. The silence in my head wasn't peace, it was a cage, and I was done being a prisoner. "No," I said, my voice a low growl. The woman's smile faltered for the first time. "I'm sorry?" I said no, I repeated, my voice louder, stronger. I looked at the screen, at the image of me holding the gun. "That's not me." "It could be," the specialist's voice cooed in my ear. "It's a better you." "It's a lie," I snarled. I reached up and ripped the device from my ear. The world rushed back in. Not the quiet, muted version, but the full, chaotic, painful symphony of reality. The memories hit me like a physical blow. The motel room, the blood, the fear, the pain. It was all there, a roaring fire in my mind. And for the first time, I didn't fight it. I welcomed it. "Foolish," the specialist's voice hissed, now tinny and distant, coming from the device in my hand. "You can't escape us." "I'm not escaping," I said, a grim smile touching my lips. "I'm opening the door." I thought of the worst moment, the moment the headset clicked on in the observatory, the violation, the helplessness. I focused on it, pouring all my pain, all my rage, all my fear into that single, crystal-clear memory. I held the device up to my mouth and screamed into it, a raw, guttural sound of pure agony. On the screen, the image of me holding the gun shattered, dissolving into a storm of static and color. In the other room, Reed-Thorne screamed, his body arching off the chair as the feedback loop hit him too. The technician at the console cursed, frantically trying to shut the system down. "What are you doing?" The specialist's voice shrieked from the device. "I'm giving you what you want." I yelled back. "I'm giving you my memories, all of them." I dove into the chaos. I let the floodgates open. Every case, every failure, every regret, every moment of pain and violence I'd ever witnessed or experienced. I became a storm of raw, unfiltered data, a human virus uploaded into their perfect, sterile system. The lights in my room flickered and died. The screen on the wall exploded in a shower of sparks. The fire alarm began to wail. The door to my room slid open, but it wasn't the woman with the serene smile. It was the specialist. He was no longer a calm, unremarkable man. His face was contorted in rage, his eyes wild. He was holding a syringe. "You're going to erase me for good," he snarled, lunging at me. But I was ready. I was no longer just a man. I was a force of nature, fueled by the very pain they had tried to suppress. I sidestepped his attack, grabbing his arm and using his own momentum to slam him into the wall. The syringe clattered to the floor. I hit him, not with my fist, but with the full weight of every memory I had just unleashed. He crumpled to the ground, unconscious. The alarm was screaming. The building was in chaos. I ran out of the room, down the now dark hallway, following the signs to the server room. The ghost core. The door was open. Inside, rows of servers were sparking and smoking, their lights flashing red. In the center of the room was a single chair, a master console, and a screen displaying a single, terrifying word: cascade failure. I had done it. I had broken their machine, and then I saw him. Dr. Thorne, stumbling out of a side room, his face pale and dazed. "What did you do?" he whispered, looking at the dying servers. "What did you do?" "I stopped them," I said. "You didn't stop them," he said, his voice trembling with a new kind of terror. "You doomed us. The tech isn't just in here. It's networked. It's embedded in global infrastructure, financial systems, power grids, medical records. It's everywhere. You didn't just crash their server, you triggered a chain reaction, a digital amnesia plague. It's going to spread, Jack. Millions of people are going to wake up tomorrow with holes in their minds." I stared at him, the horror of his words washing over me. I had won the battle, but I had just started a war. I had traded my personal hell for a global one. I looked at the master console, the heart of the dying machine. I had a choice: let it all burn, or try to fix it, to become the thing I hated most, the man who controlled memories. I sat down in the chair. The screen in front of me flickered, and a single line of text appeared. "System restore required. Admin access needed." I was the admin now. I was the keeper of the ghosts, and my work had just begun.